I would now move on to our next speaker, Dr. S. Chandrasekhar. Dr. S. Chandrasekhar is Secretary to the Government of India, Department of Science and Technology. He obtained his bachelor's, master's, and PhD degree from Osmania University, while the work for his PhD was carried out in IICT on total synthesis of cyclosporin. He was Alexander von Humboldt Fellow at Göttingen and postdoctoral fellow at the University of Texas. Dr. Srivari Chandrasekhar has made significant contributions in diverse areas of organic chemistry, especially in chiral chemistry and total synthesis of biologically active natural products. His contribution in the development of new methodologies for CC bond formation reactions involving organocatalysis and organometallic reagents is highly cited. His role in process development and drug discovery in collaboration with pharmaceutical industry have resulted in the development of economically viable processes and lead compounds. He has over 300 publications and 22 patents with over 7,000 citations. He was awarded A.V. Ramarao Chair in 2020. His team was awarded CSIR Technology Award 2021 for developing the process of vaccine adjuvant in Covaxin 2020, for the process of favipiravir in 2014, for the process of misoprostol in 2014. He received the Golden Jubilee Commemoration Medal from INSA. He has been honored by Chemical Research Society of India with the CRSI Silver Medal for his extensive and outstanding contributions to research in chemistry. He has been selected for the AstraZeneca Research Endowment Award for the year 2019. He is a recipient of Infosys Prize 2014 for Physical Sciences, C.N.R. Rao National Prize in Chemical Research 2012, Shastra C.N.R. Rao Award for Excellence in Material and Chemistry in 2017, Gold Prize in Chemical Sciences 2017, and Vasvik Award 2018 for Chemical Sciences and Technology. He received Sir C.V. Raman Birth Centenary Award for 2018. He is a recipient of the National Academy of Sciences Reliance Platinum Jubilee Award in Physical Sciences for work on innovations in applied research with fundamental approach. He has been awarded the Ranbaxy Research Award in Pharmaceutical Sciences 2009 for his contributions to total synthesis of natural products and medicinal chemistry. He is a fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Indian National Science Academy, and National Academy of Sciences. With this, I would pass it over to our speaker who is joining us virtually for his talk on towards self-reliance in key starting materials and chemical intermediates, role of startups. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. My apologies while I'm a Hyderabadi, would love to be in person there, but due to some travel constraints, I'm not able to come in person. My apologies to the organizers. And I've been listening to the talk by Professor Balu, and it's been so inspiring how the biotechnology, a youngest science, has matured, and now India is really enjoying the fruits of this great technology. It's sometimes very easy for a speaker if the organizer chooses what the speaker should give a talk. I'm happy that the organizers have decided the title for me, so my life, at least to choose a title, has become easier. The title given to me by the organizers was Towards Self-Reliance in Key Starting Materials and Chemical Intermediates, and of course, the role of startups. I just would like to emphasize that when we talk of the chemical intermediates, we also should keep in mind that chemical intermediates are not just restricted to the only pharma sector, but they also have a large role in every sector. As a practicing organic chemist, I always advocate chemistry continues to be the central science, whether we talk of any other science, including life sciences. Every matter begins with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, and we organic chemists use these chemicals day in and day out. So when we talk of the key starting materials, I thought we need to first define ourselves what is a key starting material. something which is very critical for making a useful product, whether it could be a pharma or it could be an agrochemical, or for example, any other material. Today, we are also making many electronic materials, smart materials. So everything begins with some starting material. So we do believe that when we talk of key starting material, that means after certain transformations, you reach a key stage, and this starting material would be useful to make a particular product. You can also define this as a key starting material, which may give to multiple products. For example, if you have an intermediate, which is a key starting material, but in principle, it might even give you multiple pharma products or agro products or any other equivalent product which has relevance to the human being. Even before we talk of the key starting materials, we also would like to know how these KSMs are built. Again, we do a backward integration, and we keep doing backward integration, at least if you look at the chemical sector, especially the organic chemical sector, and pharma and, of course, agrochemical. Certainly, carbon becomes the fundamental building block. So we need to decide when we are talking of the backward integration and Atmanirbhar raw materials for our pharmaceutical industry or agrochemical industry, how backward one should go. Are we talking that now we will go as back as one carbon unit, which is the charcoal, what we get, and then you start journey from there, or more simply carbon dioxide, which is the byproduct of life, and whether carbon dioxide could become the important raw material for the entire process. We have been talking of the global warming, the greenhouse gases, how carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases such as methane have been creating havoc in increasing the temperatures. We have seen how the melt of Himalayas is happening, or Arctic melt, the glaciers are melting. We always worry about how the sea levels are increasing, and all is this because of the greenhouse emissions. And these greenhouse gases certainly are an output of industrialization. So when we are really worried that the greenhouse gases, which are the output of the industrialization and the chemical sector, I'm talking chemical sector not relevant to pharma, because I don't think we are talking of pharma today. We are talking of the key intermediate from the chemical sector for various industries. So we need to also see how these greenhouse gases are emitted in the cement industry, steel industry, for example, the textiles, and other allied industries. So it's the time that we all look back at the Industrial Revolution, which has given us the material comfort and also the cost advantage of materials at low cost, especially by India and China. But in the process, I believe the technologies have compromised the environment. So it's a time that we all look back at the technologies which we have been practicing for the last few decades, and how these technologies could become greener and also, if possible, circular. Because I also would like to emphasize to my startup friends in the audience, hoping that there are some startup audience, that what are those future technologies which startup industry could play a major role. If you look at the ecosystem in the West, many innovations initially would happen in the university ecosystem, where startups take some small space, a new idea they have, they tend to build a TRL 3-4 process, and then the larger industry will come and take over, and then that's how the innovation gets transferred into the larger industry. We are happy that Hyderabad has one of the finest ecosystems, where we have the best startup ecosystem. That's where now we are in the campus of University of Hyderabad, which has been nurturing. And as Balu mentioned, the IKP, the ICSA Knowledge Park, or the Genome Valley, which has been the hub of many startups, not today, but for the last 2 decades. And certainly IIT Hyderabad campus, which has been nurturing many startups. I'm sure this ecosystem is what makes Hyderabad unique. And this workshop certainly would see that it connects startups who are aspiring to make future technologies, and large industries and investors come forward and look at these innovations. Having said that, when we are trying to revive the old technologies in the chemical sector, because the chemical sector continue to use the old processes, not only in pharma but agro, but also in the bulk chemical sector, certainly it's time that we need to do some innovations. And these innovations would come from startups, certainly, because startup companies have the fire in their belly. They would like to do something new. They would like to quickly convert a TRL1 knowledge into TRL3-4 and then partner with industries. So I urge the Innovation Hub at the University of Hyderabad that how they are able to connect these startups to the larger industry. Because currently we're talking of KSMs and bulk chemicals and intermediates. Certainly the capital investments in this sector are very, very high. It's not that any startup could really make a process and then make a KSM or a chemical intermediate, which is a backward integrated raw material for the KSM. If you take the definition that the chemical intermediates will give you KSMs and then KSMs will give you the finished products. Hyderabad being the pharma hub, if we really would like to translate that this workshop or the discussion what we are going to have in the next 15-20 minutes would revolve around the pharma, then we need to understand what are those KSMs which the pharma industry in Hyderabad are sourcing from elsewhere. And then what is the cost at which they are sourcing. Unless we give a cost advantage, I don't think any industry would be excited to take a KSM, even if it is made in India at a higher price. While Government of India has taken many initiatives, and certainly Hyderabad is one of the beneficiaries where production-linked incentives have been built, and any industry which would like to make end-to-end the raw materials, the KSMs, and the finished APIs and the formulations, there are schemes where the government gives some subsidies and grants. And I'm sure Hyderabad has taken advantage of this PLI scheme initiated by the Government of India. But in what way this PLI scheme would enable our startups? Now we know that these large industries are trying to make backward integration of raw materials, and how our young innovators could pick up those those ideas of what are the raw materials which are used by this industry, and can we bring in new chemistry or new science and see that one, it will have lesser impact on the environment. Number two, of course, it has the cost advantage. And the largest advantage is it's a local supply. We have seen during the pandemic how the supply chain of raw materials and KSMs has disrupted not only the Indian pharmaceutical industry, also the Hyderabad pharmaceutical industry in large, and because of the non-availability of shipments from other parts, many production units have to curtail their activities. So certainly once our startups would come up with novel ideas of making these KSMs and bulk chemicals, I'm sure the large pharma industry will embrace them. If required, they would certainly do investments, because it is not easy, even if after you have a process know-how for these chemicals, to make one bulk chemical on a tonnage scale. We need at least 150 to 500 crores of capital investment. We've also seen how we have been talking of one important API, which is metformin, used almost by 30% of the Indian population suffering from diabetes. And we know that the important raw material for this, the DCDA, come from elsewhere, and the entire cost depends on how DCDA come to India. Now, if Government of India or some of the chemical industries or young startups, if they would like to build a technology for DCDA, now they would like to go back and see, how do I get my calcium carbide? And again, you go back to petroleum industry, or how can you get acetylene? So we need to really calculate how we can integrate the petrochemical industry, the bulk chemical industry, the KSM industry, and finally the fish product industry, which could be an agrochemical industry or a pharma industry. As we're talking in Hyderabad, we're talking of pharma. So how we could really connect all these four supply chains so that end-to-end entire product is made in one site. The initiatives taken by the Telangana government on building these bulk parks, especially the pharma park, which is coming up hopefully in the near future. I'm sure we'll address these, and our startup friends will have many more opportunities on loosening their arms on how they can come into this business and start listing those chemicals. If you look at the chemical sector, there are about 80,000 chemicals which India currently uses in making various products. Again, as I told, into pharma, into agro, into electronics, making the chips, computers, textiles, dye industry. Whatever industry you want a chemical, cement, steel, certainly these 80,000 chemicals play a role. So can we have 80,000 startups, each startup targeting one chemical, making the best technology possible in the world, and then start manufacturing those? I'm sure it's a long dream, which I'm sure would come true in the next 25 years when India gets into the 100th year of independence and we are going through the Atmanirbhar Bharat call given by the Prime Minister. If our target is to see that India at least gets a control of not only 80,000, but at least to begin with 10,000 chemicals or 15,000 chemicals, which are used mundane in many industries. How our startup ecosystem could really partner with the large industry and investors to build this ecosystem. If our process has no environmental impact, it would be rather easy for the Pollution Control Board or the Environmental Ministry to give the licenses to manufacture these products. So now it's our job to develop science, especially the academic schools like University of Hyderabad or any other institute which is doing fundamental science. How we could build chemical science subject which is more environmentally friendly. We also know that whenever an entrepreneur wants to build a chemical industry, the kind of resistance we get from the common citizens. For example, if you want to build a chemical industry, the villagers will come and protest that it's going to produce some pollution, it's going to create challenges for the environment, for the groundwater. So we need to also see how this perception of the public changes on the chemical sector. That only can happen when we educate the importance of the chemical sector to the villagers who are living, who are not aware of the importance of these chemicals, and how they are going to change the lives of these people once this industry grows. We have seen when the vaccine industry, as Balu was mentioning, Hyderabad has played a critical role. We know that the Bharat Biotech has played a very important role, and Dr. Ella Krishna and his team, when they wanted an adjuvant for the Bharat Biotech vaccine, the way IICT team has worked relentlessly using the chemicals available locally and to bring down the cost of the adjuvant and see that the supply chain is not disrupted. That made possible almost close to 30 crore doses of the vaccine was made by Bharat Biotech because of this adjuvant, which is a chemical gain. If you really look at the backward integration of this adjuvant, the way ICT has handled this project, you can go back to a raw material as simple as either acrylic acid or simple oxalic acid, for example, or we can go to simple ammonia as one chemical, and how we could build entire complex molecule using those basic chemicals and build this adjuvant. I mean, that itself is an example study for all of us how we were able to do the backward integration to make end-to-end the same product with ourselves without importing chemicals during the lockdown period. Similarly, when we talk of metformin as a given example, how India could build in calcium carbide industry, whether some industry could come forward and make a technology for DCDA, which is ambient temperatures, because DCDA, the biggest challenge is very high temperature. You need to burn so much of coal or so much electricity to produce temperatures ranging to 1400 degrees centigrade or 1200 degrees, and the kind of environmental impact it has. Now, can we develop new science whether we could do this kind of molecules at room temperature? I think that's the kind of questions our startups should pose to themselves and come up with solutions, and industry will certainly embrace those technologies. If we only do incremental improvement on those industrial revolution processes, I don't think any industry will come forward and they take those technologies. So I strongly urge that when these startups are built in the university setup like University of Hyderabad, the academic faculty should really work very closely with these startups and share with them the kind of new science happening across the world and how we can bring that science and use in these processes. I can keep on giving hundreds of examples where our raw material input is so high, the environmental factor is so bad, and naturally it will have impact on the greenhouse gases. So what I would also tell my startup friends who are in the audience is how they could really take up these new technologies, not just look for incremental improvements. Also, when we look at the raw material sourcing, whenever you want to build a process for a KSM or chemical intermediates, we need to also make sure that the raw materials are locally available. Even if one chemical has an import demand, and if that chemical is not available, we will not be able to handle that. I'll again give you another live example during the COVID pandemic when Remdesivir was launched by Gilead and many Hyderabad industries were trying to make this chemical. The basic raw material, which is the ribose or simple TMS cyanide or silyl chloride reagent, had to be imported from elsewhere. And even if you have technology of making Remdesivir, if those chemicals don't come to India, we will not be able to make Remdesivir. Similarly, for mRNA vaccine, when mRNA vaccine, of course, why we did not get it, but the global supplies for mRNA vaccine required pseudouridine. And again, we don't even know that the pseudouridine for global supplies was made in Hyderabad. While we did not get the advantage of the mRNA Pfizer modern vaccine in India, Hyderabad played a key role of making this pseudouridine and supply to these companies who went on to make the mRNA vaccine. So sometimes you make the end product for yourself, sometimes you make a key raw material which goes elsewhere for making a product elsewhere. So we need to really work on how we position ourselves among these 80,000 chemicals, which chemicals need interventions using green technologies, and see that that's where we start our problems. Once you choose the right problem, I think half solution is there with us. It's the responsibility of the academic friends, the large industry friends, that they tell these startup friends or young entrepreneurs what is the problem they should choose. That problem should result into a solution which will be taken up by the large industry. I'll give you one or two more examples on how chemical industry could really embrace the startups to make big things happen. We all look at polystyrene, which is an important polymer for many, many industries. We look at PVC pipes, we look at the plastic bottles, many, many polymers we use, and styrene is one of the important raw materials, including vinyl chloride. While India is the largest producer of benzene, because when we refine the crude petrol, we will have surplus benzene. But because India does not have ethylene gas, we import benzene elsewhere, we export benzene elsewhere, and then import, for example, we get back, sorry, my apologies. We export benzene and we import styrene because someone has ethylene, and then they will take benzene from us. They do value addition of a catalytic process of coupling ethylene with benzene, makes styrene, and goes back at a much higher price. Now, how can we build ethylene industry? Ethylene industry builds based on how you can do dehydrogenation of ethane, for example, which is coming out of your crude oil. Now, can I do a catalytic dehydrogenation process that I make ethylene successful technology, and the benzene produced by my petroleum industry will have also sufficient styrene that we build the polystyrene industry within our country. So now how these startups can tie up with large players like Reliance or HPCL or other ONGC industries and give those technologies so that India becomes Atmanirbhar in those petroleum chemicals. Similarly, those who understand chemistry well will also know that if I have benzene, I can make phenol. I can also make catechol. I also can make toluene. I also can make benzaldehyde. So this example would give you how petroleum industry can connect to pharma industry. Again, Hyderabad plays an important role in paracetamol. We all have taken advantage of the Hyderabad industry's production of paracetamol. I think one company, Sri Krishna Pharmaceuticals, which makes one of the largest producers of paracetamol. We all, when during COVID pandemic, doctors indiscriminately prescribed to all of us a branded molecule called Dolo, which is a paracetamol, 650 milligram, not a 500 mg tablet, but a 650 mg tablet. If you look at the chemical structure of paracetamol, nothing but just begins the journey from benzene, which is a product of petroleum industry. India has sufficient sources of benzene with us, but then we don't know how to convert benzene to paracetamol. If you look at the chemistry, maybe you could go benzene to oxidation phenol, You could do nitration, which gets parapollution, you reduce nitrosamine. Then we don't have nitric acid industry, for example. Then how can I build nitric acid industry? Then you want to reduce nitrosamine. Then how do I bring in a reduction industry? I think we need to map what are the key challenges a product encounters, beginning from the bulk chemical, which is the first chemical required, to the finished product. And then only I think this industry can become truly Atmanirbhar. Look at the agriculture industry. We know that urea is the biggest chemical one would require for the farmer. And urea today is available at the import price of 3,500 rupees for a 50 kg bag. Farmer cannot afford to buy this. We give subsidy of about 3,000 rupees to farmer, indirectly, which is passed on to all of us because we buy the product made at subsidy at a low price to all of us. So now can I start working on how can I make urea better than what is the process today known? It is a very intense chemistry intensive program. And when you look at the urea structure, it is such a simple molecule, but still highly energy intensive. The raw materials required are gases basically. So how can I really use carbon dioxide, ammonia, which are byproducts of some industry, take them and use as my source of making urea that India can make our sufficient urea quantities. So chemical industry, bulk chemicals and KSMs certainly require intervention from startups, but startups should know that they cannot invest 200 crores, 500 crores to make a manufacturing process. So those who would like to come into this industry, they should make sure that their technology is the best. They would show on a pilot scale and then partner with the large industry, bring investments. Government is willing to partner with these startups. The technologies are good and make sure that India can start making these KSMs very, very effectively. While we are talking of KSMs, especially for pharmaceutical industry, one should also keep in mind that what chemicals are banned, what solvents are banned, and how, when I develop a process, whether the solvents or the chemicals what I'm using would have sustainability. Once you build sustainability model into your process, automatically your technology becomes viable. If you are using a chemical which is carcinogenic, for example, or a chemical which is not available, or which has impact on the ozone depletion, for example, chlorofluorocarbon, suddenly your industry or your technology will never take off. So while you begin your synthetic process for these chemicals, also keep in mind how you are going to build your portfolio, keeping the environment and health of the planet. Another major demand which this industry demands is the regulatory framework. While the final product comes under big regulation, even the KSMs come under a serious regulation, because if the KSM has an impurity and that impurity is carried forward in the API, it would have large impact. While we all knew that because of the racemic problem of thalidomide in 1960s, world had a big challenge of this regulatory challenge of whether one should use a racemic drug or a viral drug. The recent incidence of cough syrup in Africa has opened eyes of all of us again. An impurity like ethylene glycol, which was part of the KSM of this cough syrup, was carried forward, and that has created in the death of some children in Africa. So those who also go into KSM industry also should keep in mind how I should make sure that those hazardous chemicals are not the residues of my finished product. Sometimes they may allow you 100 ppm, hoping that in the next 2 steps or 3-step processes, that 100 ppm will become 10 ppm, which is acceptable. But first of all, why should we have 100 ppm also? So can we make it really 0 ppm of this chemical, which is hazardous for the finished product? I think this kind of thought process in the startups will bring large value rather than trying to take up just incremental changes into the existing raw materials, which may only give you a small advantage, but not make you a world leader. We have seen how our electronic industry, IT industry has taken lead role in the world. We are talking of quantum technology, cyber physical systems. We are talking of now ChatGPT. Who knows tomorrow ChatGPT will tell us if I want to make paracetamol and I will give you some boundaries, ChatGPT, don't use these chemicals don't use this solvent. Now give me an essay on how to make paracetamol. Who knows, after 5 years, it will give you a process which no best organic chemist can give. Maybe will it happen in 20 years? Will it happen 100 years? I don't know. Whether our human ingenuity will keep competing with AI is something we need to keep a watch. And we take advantage of AI rather than getting scared of what AI will do to us. Don't think this will see that our jobs are gone, but our jobs become more important to cross-check whether these AI tools are giving the right answers or wrong answers. So I only advise all the friends who are on the call today that those who would like to get into KSM business, chemical intermediates, and importantly, the responsibility of startups in these two sectors. I do believe that these startups will work with the large industry, get their problems, but give the best solutions, build the sector in such a way that India not only is the pharma manufacturing hub, but also become a chemical manufacturing hub of at least 10,000 chemicals for the world survival with green technologies. Again, I wish all the friends in the audience all the best. Again, my apologies to organizers that I am not able to join in person, but certainly I'll be happy to interact with you in my future visits to Hyderabad. Thank you.